the assembled company. We have 3/4 of an hour or possibly more, depending on how these pair of wonderful people go. Can you please put your hands together for a whole selection of stories, songs, and absolute mayhem from the fantastic Ian Douglas and Gary Bridgens? Can we put our hands together?
Marvellous. So, ladies, shall I speak first, Mr. Douglas? Shall I do that? Oh, he's put his thumb up. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our little show. Thank you for joining us. As the great Mr. John Rowe just informed you, we're going to have a 3/4 of an hour. We'll try, John. We'll try to make it just 3/4 of an hour of songs and stories. And you lucky people out there in the internet land, the first story we're going to have tonight is from my good friend and colleague, Mr. Douglas, who's just been showing you the hole in his shoe. And Mr. Douglas, I know we're separated by the miracle of distance, the tyranny of distance, in fact, you being in Staffordshire and me being in Cumbria. But from a telephone conversation earlier, I understand you were going to tell us one of your Jack stories.
I am going to tell you one of my Jack stories, if that's okay. Because we've got a room full of young people, I thought I would tell a story that I do know that young people like and love. And it's an old Jack tale, and it's a fast Jack tale. So once I start this story, please don't try and stop me. It'll be like putting a handbrake on. I'll do somersaults in midair. So if you're all sitting comfortably, I shall begin. Once, and many a long time ago, in a land not so near, yet not so far away, there were a young lad called Jack, as often there is in stories like this. Now, Jack lived with his mum, and I'll tell you something about Jack, and it's not like you lot there. Jack in this story was a very, very, very lazy boy. In fact, he was so lazy, it might surprise you to know, he spent the first 16 years of his life in bed. Well, one morning, Jack's mum, who was tired of Jack lying in bed, she went to the bottom of the stairs and she shouted, "Jack!" You've been lying around in that bed of yours for far too long. It's been 16 years and you've not lifted one finger to help me. So up you get, out of bed and go into the market and get me a piece of fish for our supper, you great big lump. Well, that's not very nice, is it? But Jack knew that his mum was he was in trouble with his mum, and so he jumped out of bed and he put on his fancy shirt, he put on his trousers, he put on his holy shoes, and he ran out the door and he went off down to the woods market. But the problem was, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, because Jack had been in bed for 16 years, he didn't actually know where the market was. And it wasn't too long before Jack was completely lost. Now I can see the growing concern upon Sarah's face right now for young Jack. But don't worry, Sarah. Don't worry, boys and girls, because as Jack ran down the road, suddenly he came across a signpost. And of course, when you're lost, if you find yourself a signpost, that always helps, you see. Now, one arm of the signpost went in that direction, and one arm of the signpost went in that direction. And I'd like to tell you that he followed the instruction of the signpost, but Jack, being Jack, didn't. He ended up going that way. Well, the road he's walking down suddenly got steeper. And then it got a little bit steeper. And then it got even steeper. Until eventually he wasn't walking. He was climbing, hand over hand, foot over foot, for what felt like a day, a week, a month, a year, until eventually he ended up on top of England's tallest mountain. And of course, Gary Bridgens, I'm sure you can tell the boys and girls the name of England's tallest mountain.
Well, you might be surprised to learn, Mr. Douglas, that I can, and that mountain is Scafell.
Of course it's Scafell. A round of applause for Mr. Bridgins for being so intelligent. Well, the problem was it was a very cloudy day at the top of Scafell Pike, as often it is, and Jack couldn't see where he was walking, and suddenly he tripped and he fell. Ah! Well, it would be a very short and sticky end to the story if we didn't help Jack out right now, but luckily for him, suddenly, from behind the clouds, there swooped this very beautiful, very magical golden eagle. And it saw Jack tumbling down towards the earth, and it swooped down, picked him up his back, and the golden eagle said, "Hello, Jack, what you doing here?" And Jack said, "Well, I was just going to the market to get a piece of fish for my mum's supper when I fell off Scafell Pike, and I've landed on your back. What about you?" And the eagle said, "Well, Jack, what a coincidence. I'm just about to fly to the market, and I'll take you down there if you like." Well, Jack, upon the back of the golden eagle, they set off. But the problem was they didn't go the direct route. They took a journey around the sun to get there. Now, I don't know if there's anybody out there that's ever flown around the sun before, but you'll know it's a long journey indeed. And on the return journey, Jack was getting quite bored. And he was looking at the back of the neck of the golden eagle, and he saw on the neck of the golden eagle a golden feather. And he thought to himself, you know, everybody should have a feather in their hat at some point in their life. I think I'll pull out the feather. Now, you can do this with me if you like. You get one hand like this, and you stretch out and take hold of the feather. And then you get another hand like this, and you stretch out and take out the feather, and you give it a tug. Are you ready? Here we go. 3 times, said the doctor. 1, 2, this time, 3. Well, the feather came out the back of the neck of the golden eagle, and it might surprise you to know that at that moment, the golden eagle disappeared. And Jack found himself stood in midair with nothing but a feather to keep him company. Well, he cried, "Ah!" But don't worry, because Jack landed like a cat on both his feet on the deck of a ship. And the captain said, "Hello, Jack, what you doing here?" And Jack said, "Well, I was just going to the market to get a piece of fish for my mum's supper when I fell off Scafell Pike. And I landed on the back of a golden eagle. We flew around the sun. I pulled out this feather and the eagle was gone. And now I've landed on your ship. What are you doing?" And the captain said, "Well, what a coincidence. We're about to go to the market. But first, I've got to sail the 7 seas. Well, I don't know if you've ever sailed the 7 seas, but I can tell you it's a long journey indeed. But there is something out there called the weather. And suddenly, the wind started to whip." Maybe you could do the wind for me. Can you do the wind? Well, the wind caught the sails of that ship and it tossed it from side to side. Come on, let me see you. Are you sailing from side to side? When suddenly a great big wave hit the deck of the ship and Jack was thrown overboard and he landed in the sea. And he sank to the bottom of the ocean. Well, he bobbed around watching the fish for a while, when suddenly, out from the dark depths, there came the world's biggest blue whale. And it opened up its great big mouth, and it swallowed him whole. Well, Jack wandered around in the belly of the whale for what felt like a day, a week, a month, a year, when eventually, off in the distance, in the darkness, he saw something he didn't expect to see in the belly of a whale. He saw a little light flickering. And as he went towards the light, he could see it was coming from a candle. And the candle was on a table. By the table, there was a chair. And in the chair was a little grey-haired man who looked a bit like John Rowe. And the little grey-haired man said, "Hello, Jack, what are you doing here?" And Jack said, "Well, I was just going to the market to get a piece of fish for my mum's supper when I fell off Scafell and I landed on the back of a golden eagle. We flew around the sun, I pulled out the feather and the eagle disappeared. I landed on the deck of a ship, but a great storm brewed up and washed me overside, and I was swallowed by this here whale. Old man, although you look like John Rowe, I can see there are some differences. You're not quite as handsome. What's your name?" And the old man said, "Well, Jack, my name is Geppetto." And well, my story's a very long one, and I haven't got time to tell it right now, Jack. I was wondering, can you think of a way we might get out the belly of this whale? And Jack, he had a little think. Go on, have a scratch to your head. Go on, have a stroke of your beard. When suddenly the idea came to him, and Jack took that golden feather and he went to the side of the whale and he gave that whale a tickle. And the whale said, can you do a big sneeze? Are you ready after 3? A 1, 2, 3. Out shot Jack and Geppetto, up through the blowhole, up through the ocean, into the sky, circumnavigated the globe until eventually Jack landed back on his doorstep. And of course, who was there to meet him but his mum? And his mum said, Jack, I only sent you into the market to get a piece of fish for our supper, and you've come back with nothing. I hope you've got a good excuse. And Jack said, oh, Mum, it's a long story. Please don't shout any louder. Well, Jack's mum, she took in a lungful. And she was about to really shout when suddenly they noticed that there was something wriggling up Jack's trouser leg. And of course, he put his hand up his pants. And what did he pull out? But a great big fish. She said, Jack, you're the best son in the world. You've brought home a piece of fish for our supper. I love you, son. And he said, I love you, Mum. And they sat down that night and they had fish and chips for their supper. And that, dear friends, is the end of the story of Jack's fantastic journey. I thank you all.
Nice one.
And thank you, Ian. And you know, you were talking about miracles at the beginning.
Yes.
We've got some special people to welcome.
We have.
The Little Miracles Youth Club are here, I think. They all came in a minibus.
Yes.
And they came into the virtual door. So welcome, Little Miracles Youth Club.
Hello, Little Miracles.
Hello, Little Miracles. We've been looking forward to meeting you, Little Miracles. So if you by some miracle, if you've never heard Mr. Douglas telling stories before, you might not have heard one of my songs. And I've got a song for you now, and it's a kind of song story, Mr. Douglas. So it'll be right up your street. Yeah, and it's got some good actions in, and you probably all know this song. Sadly, we can't all sing together because there's a 2-second gap between us and the satellite and the piano. So we all have to kind of stay on mute, sadly. But it's a song you'll all know. It's a song called, I'm going to see if I can put you on gallery view, actually, so I can see you all. Oh, there we go, marvellous. So if you can all sing along, it'd be great. And there's some actions as well. And the song's called The Big Ship Sailed on the Ali Ali O. And it goes like this. Now you all know this one. It goes like this. Oh, the big ship sailed on the Ali Ali O. The Ali Ali O. The Ali Ali O. The big ship sailed on the Ali Ali O and sailed the seas to Walney. So that's the chorus. Now, Mr. Douglas lives on a boat, but I live at the coast in Barrow-in-Furness, and that's where this song's set. And there's verses to it, which you might not know because I wrote them myself. And it goes like this. Once upon a sunny day, not very long ago, a big ship sailed on the Ali Ali O. It was a fine old clipper ship, that's an old one made of wood, and it sailed from Barrow Dockyards, the weather looking good. It sailed around the islands, bobbing on the tide, and even when the wind got up, she didn't really mind. And as they headed out to sea, the wind began to roar, and everybody waved them off as they sat there on the shore. Now, when you're waving at sailors, let's put your hands up. When you're waving at sailors, you wave, but you also go, woo! That's what you do. Let's hear you all go, woo! 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 Here we go then. Well, the big ship sailed and everybody waved. Woo! Everybody waved.
Woo!
Everybody waved. Woo!
Woo!
Sailed and everybody waved, and they waved the seas of Walney. Everybody waved, everybody waved, everybody waved, everybody waved, everybody waved, everybody waved, and sailed the seas of Walney. Well, it sailed around the islands, bobbing on the tide, and even when the wind got up, she didn't really mind. And as she headed out to sea to sail round Morecambe Bay, the seagulls started singing to help them on their way. Now, when you're a seagull, you've got to put your arms out like this, you see. Come on, you little miracles, let's see those arms out. Everybody's going to be a seagull. That's it. And you flap your arms to be a seagull. And when a seagull talks, it goes, ah! Can you all go, ah? Ah! Well, the big ship sailed, and on the seagulls said, ah! Ah! All the seagulls cried, ah! All the seagulls cried, ah! The big ship sailed, and all the seagulls cried, and they sailed the seas of Walney. Come on, seagulls! All the seagulls cried, 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 and they sailed the seas of Walney. Now, it wouldn't be a seafaring adventure without some peril. Well, here we go. Well, the crew were all singing and dancing on the deck. The captain got his rum out as they passed the sinking wreck of an older-looking fishing vessel off the starboard side. They realised some pirates were coming up behind. They tried to get away from them by blowing in a sail. The captain threw a line out and he hitched a passing whale. And as the whale dragged the clipper from the motley crew, the pirate captain shook his fist like pirate captains do. Now, when you're being a pirate, you all have to put one arm in the air like this. And pirates, I can see some right pirates out there. I'm looking at you all. Pirates all go, aha. That's what we do. Let's see you all go, aha. That's it. Aha. Well, the big ship sailed and the pirate said, aha. Aha. The pirate said, aha. Aha. The pirate said, aha. Well, the big ship sailed and the pirate said, aha, and they sailed the seas of Walney. Now, there's a problem with the end of the story, Mr. Douglas, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Oh, no.
What is
it? The problem?
The book that I got the story from, the last page was blown out of the book, and the last page was lost at sea.
Oh, no.
So
no.
Nobody knows what happened to the ship apart from the wise storyteller himself, Mr. John Roe. John,
Oh.
Yeah, it's John, I'm afraid. I think it's John that knows this one. John, can you... John, I'm sure you can remember what happened to the ship at the end of the story so we can finish it off, because you went down to the records office, didn't you?
I did. Did it come back laden with fine goods, silks, perfumes, jewels, and come back to Barrow and Furness?
Thank you, John. I remember now. Yes, that's exactly what happened. Oh, yes, that's right. I'll just try and squeeze all that into the last verse of the story. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, the captain stood on the poop deck, he was looking out to sea, and there on the horizon was a great big market, yes indeed. And there in that market he bought lots of things like silk and gold and rum, and he didn't know where to store them, so he stuffed them in the hold. And then they sailed back to Barrow in Furness. They were very happy, yes, and when they got into the dockyard, they all took the cargo off in distress, and they all lived very happily ever after a successful voyage to that faraway land. And because they got so many jewels and silks and all that cargo, the rest of their life was very grand. I think I got away with that one, did I, Mr. Douglas? I think I
Perfect.
The big ship sailed and everybody cheered.
Hey!
And the pirate said, aha!
Ah.
And all the seagulls cried. And everybody waved.
Woo!
And they sailed the seas of Wally.
Oh,
Woo. Thank you. Thank you, John Rowe, for that last verse. I wasn't expecting that, but it's nice to know it all ended happily in the end.
Fantastic. And congratulations for the squeezing it in.
Mr. Douglas,
Yes, Mr. Bridgens.
I have to get rid of my piano for the next item. You've got one up your sleeve there, haven't you?
Well, I'm wearing short sleeves today, but I probably have one in my pocket.
Well, I'll get rid of the piano while you tell one. Is that all right?
It is all right. Of course it's all right. And I was going to tell you one of my favourite stories, if you don't mind. And quite often when you truck around as a storyteller, it's always nice to do new stories, but quite often it's nice to hear old favourite ones. And this is one of the ones that I get requested to tell quite a lot. So I hope you enjoy it. It's not my story, it's your story. And if you can but listen and learn it, you could tell it to all your friends. And it's a story that goes like this. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was an old lady. And that old lady lived in a very strange place. She lived, and it might surprise you to learn this, inside a tiny little vinegar bottle, the kind that you might get at the chip shop to go on your chips, you see. Well, as you can imagine, living inside a vinegar bottle wasn't very nice. It was tiny and it was smelly and there wasn't a lot of room to move. But fear not, because one day, flying through the sky, there was a fairy. Now, you can imagine your fairy any way you like. I imagine if I was a fairy, I would have a pink tutu and tiny little wings and gorgeous golden hair. That's how I would look, you see. And I'd have big eyelashes as well that I could flash. But anyway, you picture your fairy how you like. The fairy was flying through the sky. She saw the old lady inside the vinegar bottle and she felt very concerned for the old lady. Well, you would, wouldn't you? Well, she flew down, and when she got to the vinegar bottle, she put her ear up against the vinegar bottle and she listened. And she could hear the old lady inside. And this is what the old lady was saying. She said, "Oh, it's a shame that an old lady like me should live in a vinegar bottle like this. It's far too small and smelly, and there's no room for me to turn around. I don't deserve such a fate. I deserve to live in a little cottage that had a thatched roof and white walls and a little stove to keep me warm in the winter." Well, the fairy, feeling concerned for the old lady, she said, "Now, when you go to bed tonight, close your eyes, turn round 3 times and I'll see what I can do." So the old lady went to bed. She closed her eyes, she turned round 3 times, and in the morning, do you think she was in the little cottage? Now, give me a thumbs up if you think she was. Go on, what do you think? Oh, I've got a few thumbs up. I've got a few thumbs up. Have I got any thumbs down? No. No. Oh, there's a couple of thumbs down. There's a couple of thumbs down. Well, and there's one room there where there's a thumb up and a thumb down in the same room. How confusing. Well, I can tell you, if you had your thumb up, you got it right, of course. Because she was in the little cottage. The fairy's magic had worked. And it had a beautiful white walls and a thatched roof, and it was gorgeous. And for a while, the old lady wore a smile. But the problem was, she forgot to do something very important. And when somebody does something nice to you, you should always say thank you. And she didn't. Well, the fairy went on holiday, north, south, east, west. She came back a year later. When she got there, she thought she'd check on the old lady. And she put her ear up against the door of the cottage, and she could hear the old lady moaning again. The old lady said, "Oh, it's a shame that an old lady like me should live in a cottage like this. The walls are damp and the roof, it leaks, and I can't get the fire to light. I don't deserve such a fate. I deserve to live in a townhouse with 4 floors and wooden stairs and stained glass windows and a beautiful wooden door. Fine, said the fairy. When you go to bed tonight, close your eyes, turn round 3 times and I'll see what I can do. So she went to bed, she closed her eyes, she turned round 3 times, and in the morning, do you think she was in the townhouse? Now give me a thumbs up if you think a yes. Oh, I'm getting some thumbs up and some thumbs down. Lots of thumbs up. Yeah, lots of, oh, I think there's probably equal amount this time of thumbs up and thumbs down. There's a room over there where there's thumbs on it on their side, up in Alison Davis's room. There's, and somebody's showing me their muscles as well, which is very, very nice. Well, I can tell you, if you had your thumbs up, you were right. Of course, she was in the townhouse. It was beautiful. Wooden stairs and stained glass windows, and for a while, she wore a smile. But the problem was she forgot to say thank you. Well, north, south, east and west she went until eventually she came back a year later to check on the old lady. And when she put her ear against the door, she could hear the old lady moaning again. She said, "Oh, it's a shame that an old lady like me should live in a house like this. There are far too many stairs for my knees, and I can't keep the stained glass windows clean, and the door gets stuck when it rains. Oh, I don't deserve such a fate. I deserve to live in a castle, and I would be a queen, and I'd have a golden crown upon my head and a golden throne to sit in, and lots of rooms, and oh, I'd have lots and lots and lots and lots of children, just like you lot, to do all my dirty work, like wash my dirty socks and knickers by hand." Fine, said the fairy. You go to bed tonight, close your eyes and turn round 3 times and I'll see what I can do. So she closed her eyes, she turned round 3 times, and in the morning, do you think she was in the castle? Give me a thumbs up if you think yes, a thumbs down if you think no. Oh, look at this. The thumbs down are growing. There's still a few optimistic people in the room, but I think pessimism has kicked in and people are getting a bit fed up with this old lady. But if you've got your thumb up, you're right. She was in the castle, and she did have a crown and a golden throne, and lots and lots and lots of children were waiting outside with pegs on their noses, ready to do some hard work. Well, for a while, she wore a smile, but she forgot to do something important. She forgot to say thank you. Well, the fairy went north, south, east, west. She came back a year later to check on the old lady. And would you guess, the old lady was moaning again. "Oh," she said, "I don't deserve this. To live in a castle so large, there are far too many rooms, and the flags on the spire keep me awake at night, and none of the children have turned up for work. And there's a big pile of knickers in the corner gathering flies. I don't deserve this. I deserve to live on top of a cloud. And if I lived on top of a cloud, I would be like God. And I could tell everybody what to do, especially Dougie, you." "Fine," said the fairy. "You go to bed tonight, close your eyes, turn round 3 times, and I shall see what I can do." So she went to bed, she closed her eyes, she turned round 3 times, and in the morning, do you think she was on the cloud? There are people putting their thumbs up and down, all sorts of stuff. What do you think? There's the no's. Mr. Bridgens is in the yes gang. Oh my goodness, there are some no's and there are some yeses, there are some maybes happening. And there are some people still showing me their muscles, which is wonderful. Thank you for showing me your muscles. But all those people who have got their thumbs up, you've got it wrong. Because she wasn't on the cloud, and she wasn't in the castle, and she wasn't in the house, and she wasn't in the cottage. I'll tell you where she was. She was stuffed head first right back inside that vinegar bottle, which is where that old lady deserved to be. And all good stories have some kind of message, meaning, or moral, do they not? And the moral of this story is this: be happy with what you've got. But most importantly, always say thank you to fairies, and you won't share the same fate as that old woman. And that, dear friends, is the end of my story. And you should give yourselves a round of applause for joining in. Hey!
Marvellous, darling. Marvellous. That old woman, she got exactly what she deserved, I thought.
I think so. Did you like my impression of an old lady?
I thought it was absolutely magnificent. Did you model it on anybody I know? Was it a member of the royal family, perhaps?
It was modelled on Princess Beatrice.
Oh, I thought I recognised her in that. Well, you're a very skilled actor, Mr. Douglas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bridges.
Now, I'm looking at the clock, and really, we've only got 15 minutes left. There's no way we'll be done. We'll manage 3/4 an hour if we do everything on the list. Shall we persevere anyway, like that man at Glastonbury who refused to come off the big stage that time?
Well, I think you should. I think you should do at least another number, if nothing else.
I think is it, well, let's have the thumbs up. Let's have a big thumbs up if they should just do their complete set and carry on.
Well,
Lots of thumbs up.
Anywhere, are we? All right then. Thank you, John.
Just carry on as long as you like, Gary.
Wise as always, Mr. Rowe. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a story this time rather than sing you a song. And usually when I tell my stories, I have my cat, Dolly. This is my cat. I don't know if you can see the picture. And I push the cat, Dolly, around. And inside Dolly, I've got lots and lots of suitcases. And each suitcase has a different story. And I've brought one of the suitcases along because I can't get Dolly into the house while we're in lockdown. So I'm going to tell you a story this time. And it's a story all about an old lady. The different old lady to the vinegar lady, Mr. Douglas. Maybe that's the theme of tonight's show. It's us and old ladies. And the old lady in this story, she was very, very poor. And when it's a shame for somebody in a story, you all have to go, oh. You all have to do that. And if we can't hear you, so you have to do it with your arms as well. You go, oh. But don't worry, because the old lady in the story, she never, ever starved. And she was really poor, but she couldn't afford any food. But what she did have was this. It was a magical pot. She did have a house. This will be her carpet, I suppose. I'll just put the carpet out for you there. There you are. It's quite a posh carpet for a poor old lady. There it is. And the pot, well, it sat in the centre of the room. And the old lady, if she, in fact, I promised you an old lady. I'll just get you an old lady out. I've been playing with puppetry, Mr. Douglas. I've been playing with puppetry. I'll just put my cloth in. Now, all the old lady had to do in order to get some magic porridge, well, I said you'd have an old lady. Here she comes. It's just a spoon, look, and an old cloth. And now it's an old lady. Hello, she said, the old lady. Give her a wave, the old lady. They like a wave, do old ladies. Now, the old lady, if she wanted to get some porridge out of the magic pot, all she had to do was say the magic words. And the old lady, she would come down the stairs, you see, she would approach the pot and she would say the magic words. And the magic words were these: cook, pot, cook. What were the words, everybody? Pot, cook. That's right. And if she said that, well, the porridge would fill up in the bowl and it was delicious, gorgeous porridge. Let's have a little taste. There we go. The most delicious porridge in the world. But who wants to have porridge every single day? Would you like to have porridge for your breakfast, your dinner, and your tea? You've got your hand up. Hands up if you'd like to have porridge for your breakfast, your dinner, and your tea. Put those hands up. There's one, two. There's a couple of people. But would you like to have porridge every day of the year? Porridge for your birthday, for your Christmas dinner, for your birthday treat? I don't think so. But don't worry, because the old lady had a second spell, and that second spell would flavour the porridge. So all the old lady had to do was think up a rhyme, and the porridge, well, the porridge would taste of anything she rhymed it with. For example, if she said, oh, I don't know, porridge pot, with the fruit tree grapple, make my porridge taste of. Has anybody got any? Put your hands up if you think little miracles. Michelle's got her hand up in a grey t-shirt. Can you tell me what do you think? You might have to mime it. You might have to show me what you think it is.
Go for it.
Go on. Oh,
They can hear you now. Apple.
An apple. Yeah, it was an apple. Michelle, was it a red un or a green un?
What do you think?
Grey.
A grey one?
Yeah.
Well, do you know what?
Porridge is gross and nothing. And
Did-
grey.
It was a grey one. It was a grey one. Lesser known grey apples, they're called. You buy them in London in markets. Yeah, and that's true. And that's what happened. Was the old lady when she tasted the apple, the porridge? Well, it did, in fact, taste of apple, and she was very happy. And that's all the old lady had to do. You see, all she had to do was think of a rhyme, and the porridge would taste of anything she rhymed it with. And one day, the old lady, she came down the stairs. And she thought to herself, I'll have some porridge. But what the old lady didn't know, I'll have to reach back into the box again. Coming down the road that fateful day was the greediest man in town. And you could tell by his pinstripe suit that the greediest man in town was a man from the bank. And the man happened to be walking down the road, just as the old lady started coming down her stairs. And the man from the bank, he was watching. And the old lady, she approached the pot and she wanted some porridge of her own for the day. So she said, what can you all remember? We'll all do it together. I'm sure you can remember. It's cook, pot, cook. We'll say it together after 3. 1, 2, 3. Cook, pot, cook. Well, the porridge started filling up in the bowl, and the man from the bank, he was watching through the window. And the old lady, she remembered that she had to think up a rhyme to flavour her porridge, and today she wanted savoury, so she said, porridge pot, clever and wise, make my porridge taste of burger and fries. Ooh. Well, the porridge all tasted of burger and fries. Now, what the old lady didn't know, and some of you people out there might not know this neither, is burger and fries isn't very good for you all the time. There's a lot of salt in burger and fries. So the old lady had to go off to the kettle to make a cup of tea. And when she went to the kettle for the cup of tea was right by the window where the man from the bank were watching. And the man from the bank, he didn't want to get caught peeping. So the man from the bank, he ran away. And after the old lady had made her a cup of tea, she went back to the pot. And this is very important. You'll all have to listen carefully. She went back to the pot to switch the pot off. And the off spell was this: stop, pot, stop. What was the spell altogether? Stop, pot, stop. And that turned it off. But because the man from the bank were hiding, he didn't see how to turn it off. Oh no, there's going to be trouble. But the old lady, she went out after she'd turned it off to where old ladies like to go of an afternoon. Down a bingo she went. That's where old ladies go. And the man from the bank, that naughty man, he wanted some porridge of his own. So he opened the window and he jumped inside the old lady's kitchen. And the man from the bank, he approached the pot and he wanted some porridge of his own. And he remembered the spell because he was watching. And he said, cook, pot, cook. And the porridge started filling up in the bowl. And the man from the bank, he remembered that he had to think up a rhyme to flavour his porridge. Little Miracles Michelle, sorry Lulio, can we have Little Miracles Michelle on again there? Is that all right? Seeing as you're my helper in this story. Can you hear me, Michelle?
We can hear you.
Hi.
So grey t-shirt girl. What's your favourite food?
Brain.
He wants brains.
Brains.
Yeah.
He said, porridge pot. I am porridge pot for me and my friends. Make my porridge taste of lovely, nice brains. And well, the porridge all tasted of brains, which was quite peculiar, but nonetheless, the man was used to high quality food. Black t-shirt boy in the same house. Is it? I can't see you very well. Is there a black t-shirt person? What's your favourite food?
Yeah.
Hey?
Jalapeno poppers.
Malia.
Jalapeno poppers.
That is.
Yeah.
He said, porridge pot. Oh, just for me. Make my porridge taste like very hot, chilly food indeed. And the porridge, well, it all tasted of chilli flavour poppers, you see. And there's one other person there who's not had a go. Grey t-shirt person. What's your favourite food? Yeah.
Apples are my favourite food.
Banana.
We need something else. We've had apples already. Give us something else. Anything else?
Egg. Egg.
Lettuce?
Okay.
Porridge pots. You are serene. Make my porridge taste of a lovely vegetable that grows in the ground. What's good for you? And green. Well, you get the idea. By the end of the session, the man from the bank, he'd had so many bowls of porridge. Look, his tummy, it was fit to explode. And he said, thank you very much, porridge pot. That's quite enough. I don't want any more porridge. You can stop. But that wasn't the spell to turn it off, so it kept cooking. And he said, here, porridge pot, if you don't stop cooking, I'll call the police. But that wasn't the spell to turn it off neither. And so eventually, as if by magic, look, the porridge, it started to pour over the side of the bowl. Look. The porridge went this way. The porridge went that way. The porridge went up. The porridge eventually poured right out of the bowl. The porridge, it poured all the way out of the old lady's window. The porridge flowed down the road. And the porridge, it went all over everybody in town. And everybody thought they were going to drown. But thankfully, just in the nick of time, there came a girl, and little miracles, Michelle. Let's have them back on again, Lulio, if you don't mind. Who's the littlest person there that wanted brains? Who's the little person that wanted? Who's that?
Oliver, say hi.
Egg.
Oliver, are you happy to help me finish this story off?
Yes.
You are. Well, I'm going to be playing the man from the bank, and you're going to be playing the old lady. And the old lady, she looked at the man from the bank and she said, you know, you silly man, the whole town is full of porridge. And the man said, I know, I'm really sorry enough. I just didn't know how to turn it off. And Oliver, was it? You're going to do the old lady voice. Can you remember the spell to turn it off? What did she say? She said,
Malia.
Oliver, I'll give you a clue.
He can't remember.
Well, don't you worry, Oliver, I'll remind you. She said,
Malia.
"Pot, stop," she said. Go on, you do it.
You say pop, stop.
Pot.
Stop. Do it and I'll say stop.
Stop.
Right. And that was just enough. And the porridge, it started to sink away. And the porridge went back through the streets. And eventually all that porridge it went back into the old lady's pot. And everybody was very happy. And at the end of the story, the old lady, she looked at the man and she said, "You naughty man, have you learned your lesson?" And the man from the bank said, "Yes, love, I've learned not to be so greedy." And the old lady said, "You must be very hungry after your adventure. Would you like something to eat?" And the man said, "No, thanks, love. I'll never have porridge again as long as I live." And the old lady said, "Oh, don't worry. I had a nice win when I was down at the bingo, and I won this. It's an enchanted gravy boat." Another story, and that is the story of the magic porridge pot. Thank you very much. There we go. Thank you all. Oh, I'm just getting a phone call there, which has made me made my screen go for it. Thank Mr. Douglas. I think we've got time for one more story from you, and then a final song, I think, is what we've got time for.
Well, I was thinking that might be Hollywood ringing, Gary, to
It was a Mr.
say that they enjoyed the story. I think they're on. I think it's Spielberg.
It was a Mr. S. Spielberg. Yeah, quite right.
Well, I think he probably wants to turn the porridge pot into a multi-billion-pound adventure film starring Harrison Ford.
I've always thought it would make a good summer blockbuster. Yeah.
Anyway, one last story from me, a short story. I'll keep it quite short. And I was just, my wife's just come in onto the boat. She's been out paddling along the canal. And I was saying to her, I was going to tell one story, but I think I'd like to tell a different story. And we've just had a little silent, we were writing little notes to each other about what story to tell. And I thought, I know what story I should tell you. So I'm going to leave you on this story. And I think it's a very beautiful little story, just as a contrast to the others. And I'm noticing that in the room, there are a lot of young people. And I remember being young. It seems like a long time ago now, but I do remember being young. And I remember being young because I was quite a small person. I'm still not very tall. And sometimes when you're small, sometimes you don't feel as important as big people who are big and tall. And people who are big and tall tend to talk loud and make you feel even smaller, you see. So this story's all about being small and how small can be brilliant. And it's a story that was given to me by my teacher, Mr. Taffy Thomas. So you can find out all about Taffy Thomas if you go on Google. But we won't go through that now. Here's the story as a last little offering to you. Once upon a time, to look up in the sky over the Lake District, up in Cumbria, in England. If you were to look up above the mountain known as Helvellyn, you would see a tiny speck in the sky. Now, if you were to watch it for a while, if it was doing circles in the sky, you would know that you would be looking at the last of the Lakeland golden eagles. Sadly, he's not around anymore because he was very, very old. But this story goes back a wee while when he was younger. The problem with the golden eagle was he was so big and he was so strong. And because he was big and he was strong, he used to like to fly through the sky and scare all the little birds. And he would scare at them by shouting at them. And this is what he would say. He would say, "I'm the biggest. I'm the best. I am the king of the birds." Well, you know, all the little birds that lived down on the ground underneath Helvellyn, the great mountain, they were very frightened of the golden eagle. Well, you would be, wouldn't you? And one day they decided they'd had enough. There's a word for people like the golden eagle. They're called bullies. And we don't like bullies. And the little birds, they got themselves together and thought, it's time to deal with that bully. And they went down to the lake. And by the side of the lake, there was an oak tree. And living in the oak tree, there was a wise old bird. Even wiser than John Roe, which is really difficult. Because as we know, John's the oldest man in the world. Well, that bird was the owl. And they don't come more wiser than the owl. Well, Owl came out onto a branch and they said, "Owl, that golden eagle has got a bit too big for his beak. We want you to come up with a plan that might bring him down a perch or two." Well, Owl thought for a while and then said this: "Tomorrow, all the birds that live in the valley will all meet up on the side of Helvellyn, and we'll have a competition that settles the argument as to who is the king of the birds. And that will be the bird who can fly the highest and stay in the sky the longest." Well, Golden Eagle, he overheard the plan and he said, well, what a waste of time. I'm the strongest bird. I'm the biggest bird. I can fly the highest. I can stay there the longest. I'm already the king. Now just admit it. And Owl said, well, that's fine if that's what you think, but tomorrow we'll put an end to the argument. Well, the very next day came, and up on Helvellyn was every bird you could possibly imagine. There were sparrows, there were robins, there were blue tits and grey tits, there were crested finches, there were ravens, there were rooks, there were magpies, there were hawks, there were buzzards, there were ospreys, and above them all was the golden eagle. And he was still shouting, I'm the biggest, I'm the best, I'm the king of the birds. But you know, there was one bird that everybody had missed because she was the tiniest of birds. Her name was Jenny Wren. So small that the golden eagle, well, he didn't even look so low upon the ground, but Owl did. Owl went to Jenny Wren and whispered a little plan. And when Jenny Wren understood the plan, she hopped through the feet of all the other birds, and none even glanced at her, until eventually she hopped up onto the back of the mighty golden eagle. And he was so big and she was so tiny that he didn't notice her nestle down inside her feathers. But when Owl saw that Jenny Wren was in position, he shouted, on your marks, get set, go. Well, up flew all the birds, and there were so many birds in the sky that they blotted out the sun and sent a shadow down onto the town known as Keswick. And of course, that shadow's still there to this very day, which is why it rains all the time in Keswick, in case you were wondering. Up, up, up went the birds. Above them all was the mighty golden eagle. And it wasn't too long before the little birds, the sparrows, the robins, their wings, they grew tired and they had to admit defeat. They spiraled down. They landed on the top of Helvellyn. But the race was still on. There was still the rook, there was still the raven, there was still the magpies. But you know, even the mighty raven couldn't keep up with Golden Eagle, and they flew down and landed on the hillside. So now it was the hawk posse, the buzzard, and the mighty osprey who can fly from Africa to England every single year. But even then, couldn't keep up with the Golden Eagle. And eventually they spiraled down and landed on the top of Helvellyn, and that left but Golden Eagle in the sky. And he looked and he could see he'd won. And he shouted, I told you, I was the king of the birds. I'm the strongest. I'm the best. I am king. But I'll tell you a truth, because Taffy told me, so it must be right. He said, even the Golden Eagle, Ian, can't stay in the sky forever. And the Golden Eagle felt his wings grow tired and slow. Because he knew he'd won, he started to spiral down towards the ground. And that is when little Jenny Wren, she played out the plan. She leapt off the back of the Golden Eagle and she flapped her tiny wings. And you know, for just a little while, she hovered even higher than Golden Eagle had hovered. And when Golden Eagle landed on the top of Helvellyn and looked up, he could see that he had been beaten by the smallest of birds. And he was so angry that he flew off to his nest and he never spoke to a single bird from that day. But little Jenny Wren, she came down and she landed on the hillside and everybody cheered. And Owl said, Jenny Wren, you see, sometimes being big isn't the way to win. Sometimes using your brains is the way. You might not be the strongest nor the biggest bird, but you've certainly got the greatest wit. And ever since that day, little Jenny Wren has been known as the king of the birds, but not the king of winter, because that belongs to our friend the robin. But that's another story altogether for another time indeed. That, dear friends, is the end of the story from Taffy Thomas through me to you of the eagle and Jenny Wren. I thank you very much.
Very good, Mr. Douglas. So we're approaching time, so we're not done too bad, you know, Mr. Douglas. So I'm gonna finish off with my last little thing. And usually, Mr. Douglas and myself and Mr. Rowe and many of the storytellers and performers that are here in the World Storytelling Cafe would be out doing what we call our summer season. And that's where we go all around the country, all around the world sometimes, telling stories, singing songs and doing shows. And we can't at the moment because they've all been cancelled due to coronavirus. But that's one of the magnificent things about having the World Storytelling Cafe. So thank you to everybody involved in the World Storytelling Cafe. Otherwise, we'd all just be sat at home watching a telly. So we're able to bring you some songs and stories. And Mr. Douglas and myself, we're working on a new show for the summer. It's going to be a smaller show that we can take out to smaller places. And this weekend we'd be in big old Glastonbury, but we're going to perform in smaller places. And I've worked out a new song for the show, and it's all about magic. But before I sing you the song, I thought I would show you a magic trick. Thumbs up if you like magic. Oh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my handkerchief disappear by putting it inside my fist like this. You'll notice my sleeves are rolled up, so there's no cheating. In goes the handkerchief into my fist. I push it in, I squeeze it really tight. I haven't dropped it on the floor, and now you'll see that my handkerchief has...
Very good.
I only show you the magic trick to introduce the song, because another word for magic is illusion. And the thing about magic is the magician is always trying to trick you, you see. The magician is always trying to get you to look where the magician wants you to look. And it's not just true about magic, neither. There's all kinds of situations where people try and trick you all the time. So you've always got to be careful. Your mums and dads will tell you this about all kinds of things. You've always got to be careful and make sure, I'm struggling here to get my plectrum out, and make sure that you're always watching, especially when you're young, that you're not being tricked. And this song's a bit, it's about magic, but it's also about making sure that you're looking out, because there's always people around trying to trick you. And the song's called Illusions, and it's a brand new song, so I'll probably get it wrong. But it goes like this. Does that sound all right, Mr. Douglas? I'm not cracking out, am I? Okay, it goes like this. Oh, magic isn't always cards and scarves, pulling rabbits out of top hats, or sewing folk in half, cups and balls of doves from up your sleeve. Well, it might well make you wonder that it might be make-believe. Oh, you can pull a silver 10 pence from your ear. Smoke and mirrors might make Blackpool Tower disappear. Stick a pin in a balloon and still it's fine. You might turn hearts to diamonds or turn water into wine. But if you're willing to believe that things aren't always the way that we perceive them, if you take a look and learn, maybe you'll decide that sometimes you might just spot it, view things from both sides. Watch things closely and find the things they're hiding. If you take a look and learn, maybe you'll decide that sometimes it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Now magic isn't always magicians, of course. There is magic and wonder in nature. And the verse goes like this. Oh, magic isn't always men in suits. Magic's all around us in nature's attributes. Animals and plants evolve and change. It's a world of awe and wonder, and it's often very strange. A chameleon changes colour, camouflage. A pufferfish expands itself to make its body large. There's a frog in Ecuador with morphine skin. One day it's sharp and spiny, and then it's smooth and slick again. And if you're willing to believe that things aren't always the way that we perceive them, if you take a look and learn, maybe you'll decide that sometimes you might just spot it, view things from both sides. Watch things closely and find the things they're hiding. If you take a second look and read between the lines, then sometimes it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh, all illusion. Now the last verse is all about plants and animals, and you'll notice I'm magically looking over at my lyrics, which are nailed to the mantelpiece. It goes like this. Oh, well, there's magic in our flowers and our trees, 'cause they fill the world with colour and they help to make us breathe. A bulb sleeps underground through ice and snow, and the seed can push through concrete. It's amazing how they grow. Oh, there are healing properties in marigolds. There's a tree in California that's 5,000 years old. The plants and the trees keep us alive, so we must work hard to protect them, though something we can neglect them. And if you're willing to believe that things aren't always the way that we perceive them, if you take a look and learn, maybe you'll decide that sometimes you might just spot it, view things from both sides. Watch things closely and find the things they're hiding. If you take a look and learn, maybe you'll decide that sometimes it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion. Oh yeah, it's all illusion.
Well, thank you.
And it's all about, yeah, so be careful, you young'uns, especially you young'uns. You never know. Always keep your eye out. You never know what's going on. There's one for you.
Well, thank you, Ian and Gary. Can we give them a big round of applause? Ooh. And every Friday at the worldstorytellingcafe.com will be Children's Night. So next week, next Friday at 6 o'clock, there'll be the wonderful Baden Prince with his children's set, so on young people's set. So we'd love to see you there. Thank you for coming tonight. You've joined in magnificently. If there's any adults around with a spare 2 pence, there's a hat somewhere. If you go to the site, we can Gary and I'm sure Ian would appreciate. But meanwhile, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Ian. And we'll wave you goodbye. And thank you, North America.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Lily.